Somewhere in the dark and nasty regions where nobody goes stands an ancient castle. Deep within this dank and uninviting place lives Burke.
Hello!
Overworked servant of the thing upstairs.
Burke, feed me!
But that's nothing compared to the horrors that lurk beneath the trapdoor. For there is always something down there, in the dark, waiting to come out.
Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man Andy Gillard here. Hope everyone's doing well right now.
Hi everybody, Matt Guy here. Hope everybody is splendid and ready to be spooked.
Oh, spooked? Yes, I have climbed it my well. I am back. Hello everyone.
The plan was going to be, Stu, each week I was going to try and tell a story where the first week you fell down a well, then the next week was going to be that you've got out of the well but a falcon kidnapped you and took you to its nest. And I was just going to build a story depending on how long it was going to be until your return. But we are glad to have you back, Stu. And we need to say welcome to the first and maybe not last Cage Fighting Film Festival. For Halloween, our next two question casts are going to be shorter, but no less sweeter than your love of the show. We're going to pepper in a few questions, but the overarching theme is going to be, if Cage Fighting was asked to curate their own horror film festival, what films would you choose? And because it's Halloween, we thought we would ask the only person we know who has actually appeared in a horror film. And back for his second appearance, Mr. Ash Dolan. Ash, welcome back.
Hello. The agent fee was quite subliminal.
Well, I'm sure it can keep you in your iced tea throughout the evening, can't it?
Peached is the best.
So I think really the first recommendation that we should do should be the film that you were in, Ash. So you were in The Last Showing, 2014, starring the one and only Robert Englund.
Yep.
So do they still send you residuals for this, Ash? Are they...
I think I owe them money, really. It was that bad. Yeah. I got to meet Robert Englund, which was lovely. And they absolutely wrecked where I work by throwing people through glass windows and breaking doors and everything like that. So that's probably the best experience that we had about it.
I've got to admit, I haven't got round to seeing this film. It's one I've just not been able to find anywhere. But I did look before the podcast started, and it is available on Prime and Netflix and everywhere you expect to rent and or buy, should you wish. I will get around to watching it at some point, I do promise.
I wouldn't rush.
Well, some of the reviews either seem to be this is really good and really interesting, or this is absolute dog shit. Which, I mean, for me, I quite like both of those extremes, so it sounds like it might be my cup of tea.
We got a staff showing of it once it had wrapped and they'd done it all, and not one member of staff went to watch it.
That's a damning indictment, isn't it? So, as part of our curated Cage Fighting Horror Fest, we also asked our good buddy, writer and all-round horror hound, David Court, to supply a recommendation, but we're saving that as the headliner, and that'll be at the end of the next question cast. But be sure to get your hands on David's book, and that is Content May Unsettle, available where books are sold. So the first question, just to get your brain juices a-flowing, gentlemen. On a personal level, what do you get out of watching horror films? Stu?
I actually don't know. It's a brilliant start again. Because I hadn't really thought about it. Like, it's like, why do you watch a comedy? Obviously, because you want to laugh. Or why do you watch action films? Because it's fun. For me, horror just comes under that. It's not one specific reason. I mean, me and you said before, like, it was probably last year, last Halloween, saying, well, we don't just watch horror films at Halloween time. We watch them all year round because it's just another genre that we like. And for me, that's what it is. I haven't got a specific reason for it. I don't like being scared. if I fancy it, I'll just put it on. It doesn't really matter what the genre is. I've not got no real draw to horror like some people have.
Yeah. What do you think of the theory that people watch horror because they can't experience it for themselves, and this is the next closest thing? So you watch it because you're a masochist. You want to experience the pain of the person on screen, but you can't. Do you buy into that theory at all, Stu?
Well, that's. This is like Goldie used to say this about why he never used to play driving games because he said, "Well, I couldn't go out and drive a car." Well, you can't go and race a Subaru, can you? Like in Gran Turismo, that kind of breaks down straight away for the same kind of argument. That I mean, masochists are fucking weird people anyway. If you want to experience pain, they can go and find pain themselves. Not for me. I don't get that. I mean, it's. If you want escapism, then I don't see why horror would be any different to any other kind of thing, really.
Matt, you're less of a lover of the horror genre, aren't you? So what do you get? Good, bad, indifferent?
I feel there's a slight misconception here. I just don't like to be scared. No, so for me, what I get from horror is it's an exploration of some of the things that I really enjoy in a more kind of graphic sense a lot of the time. So, we don't really get good movies about mythology really these days. It seems all monsters or anything like that without it being like either a kid's wacky kind of cartoonish show or a horror. And I like those things. I like, werewolves, vampires, zombies, everything like that. And those things I really enjoy about horror. The things I don't enjoy so much are the things that could happen to me in real life, like getting made into a human centipede. So that's to say that I don't like horror is a slight stretch. I just I'm easily spooked, put it that way.
So is it jump scares that gets you, or is it more of the slow? So, yeah. Okay.
I'd say it's the jump scares because I enjoy the psychology of horror, and I enjoy the slow build up, and I enjoy the payoff at the end, like a good storyline. But cheap jump scares are it's exactly that, and and it just makes you feel uncomfortable. I don't get a sense of satisfaction out of that, whereas I do for kind of psychological stuff.
See, I think if you'd been old enough to have experienced the Resident Evil dog at the time, then this would never be an issue, would it?
Yeah, that's very true, yeah.
I'm fairly certain I was more than old enough for that. Wasn't like...
You're probably about 5, wouldn't you?
No. Because Slipknot was on the soundtrack for the Iowa album, so I was at least like 11 or 12. Comfortably.
Of the first game?
Oh, the first game. I'm talking about the films. Oh, the first game. No, you hella old.
Yeah.
Ash, what do you get out of horror?
I found this hard to answer because every answer came the same way, and I just enjoy watching stupid people get what's coming to them. I feel like in the sort of the slasher movies, there's always the people you sort of relate to in your life. Like there's idiots who and you can relate to them, and then watching them get slashed or whatever, it's just gratifying, isn't it? I just enjoy watching it, to be honest.
There is that certain level of schadenfreude that comes with horror that you don't really get with other genre. So I think that's partly why I get it. And you do get that endorphin rush with horror. Like you get an endorphin rush with comedy, and I think that comedy and horror are very, very closely related genre because it's all about the unexpected. That's where the surprise comes from. That's where the best comedy is, and that's where the best horror is for me.
Yeah,
that's why I love horror. Is that I get that endorphin rush when I watch it. I either laugh or jump, and I like that feeling of not knowing what's going to come next. And to sort of add on to what Matt said, I enjoy the lore that seems to be built up within horror that you don't really get in other genre of film. Like comedies tend to be quite lightweight and surface level. Action is just big and bold and great. But horror, they tend to have an underlying story that keeps getting built on. Even if it's not within the same franchise, the lore of horror in itself is just something to behold, I think. That's why I love horror. That's where it comes from for me. Whether it's high concept, low concept, highbrow, lowbrow. I just love it. I think it's excellent.
And of course, you love it because a lot of women get killed, and you are a massive sexist, as we found out a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, yeah.
Yes,
I hate girls, apparently. Yeah, I'm not getting into that one. So what was the film that got you into horror? Either the first film that you watched in horror or the film that turned your mind around on it? Ash, where did you start with this one?
Going back to 1998, that age-old year, show my age a bit, and it was The Faculty. So basically, it was based off that Christopher McDonald was in Happy Gilmore, obviously as Shooter McGavin, and he's obviously Frodo's dad in The Faculty, and I was like, I liked Happy Gilmore. And so I watched this, and obviously it's a lot different than Happy Gilmore, and obviously we all know what happens in it. There's that scene in the school bathrooms, which is also quite good for a young lad at that age. And then it's also got Oasis as the credit music, which is probably one of the better credit songs ever. So, yeah, I quite enjoyed The Faculty, even though it's watching it back, it doesn't age very well. It also has a decent cast with Usher, Jon Stewart, and young Josh Hartnett.
I remember seeing it at the time, and I really enjoyed the film. It's not one I've ever revisited, but I remember thinking it was good fun. Yeah, I should probably add that one back to the list. Stu, what about yourself? Where did you start with horror?
I think I probably paused The Faculty almost as much as Cruel Intentions, I think. With in the one, it's almost like, well, I know what the first thing that scared me is also the same one that got me into it, because I watched the Fly, Jeff Goldblum Fly, Brundlefly, when I was probably about 6 or 7, which was obviously a very bad idea, and it terrified me for months on end, and I couldn't sleep. I had to sleep in mum's bed and all this kind of stuff. But then me and, again, friend of the show, Dean, had this kind of the Fly fan club at secondary school. And so, talking about that, we then went to watch American Werewolf in Paris, and that's kind of what got me on the bandwagon to watching horror films again, rather than just be terrified of them. So, for me, it kind of pushed me away and brought me back in with the love of The Fly.
I remember the first time I saw The Fly, I think I was on holiday with Mum. I think we'd gone to like Weston-super-Mare or somewhere like that, staying in a caravan. And for whatever reason, I must have been up ridiculously late. I must have been a little bit older than yourself when I saw it. I think I might have been about 13, 14. Actually, maybe not even that, thinking about it. And The Fly was on, and I think Mum had probably fallen asleep, and I just stayed up watching The Fly. And it's the arm wrestling scene. Like, to this day, just thinking about it does make my stomach turn a little bit. It's just horrible. But yeah, it's a cracking film. And it's one of those that sort of borders on the line between between lowbrow and like art for me. Because there are elements of it that are quite trashy, but it's also got quite a deep and meaningful metamorphosis storyline. So I do think The Fly is an excellent, excellent movie.
And his jar of things as well, which can't be missed.
Yeah, a bit grim. Matt?
So I think it started off for me with, it would have been Silence of the Lambs was kind of the first horror I saw. I know it's not horror so much as it's more of a thriller / psychological kind of film, but that's what kind of kick-started it off for me, the idea that people are nasty and there are serial killers in the world kind of thing. That kick-started that world for me. Very quickly watched The Shining on the back of that, which left an impression on me, and I loved that. And then it started to move into more kind of like found footage stuff like Blair Witch, and I started to lose interest in the genre around the time I saw Grave Encounters. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I don't even know that one.
Yeah, it's a film following a film crew following a Derek Acorah style show. And they're basically all they're hokey as fuck, and it's like that. You see them showing how it's all fake and they're making it up, but actually the place is actually haunted, and it's one of those kind of things. But it just scared the living shit out of me, and I was actually petrified by it. And it was at that point that I was like, nah, you know what? These jump horrors, they ain't for me. They ain't my bag.
The film which got me into, I think the first horror film that I saw is a film called Ghoulies. I don't know if any of you know this film.
Heard of Ghoulies, yeah.
Right, it's a mid-80s film, and it's basically off the back of Gremlins. So you had all these little critters. I mean, Critters is another film from that era of time, where it's just these small little, either cutesy or evil-looking creatures, and they're trying to play off the fact that they're gremlins like to try and get some money out of people. And a friend's older sister put that on when I was probably about 5, maybe 4 years old. I remember nothing about the film apart from there's one scene where a guy goes to the toilet and one of these ghoulies bites his arse. And that's literally all I can remember about the film. But then a few years later, I had my appendix out when I was a little bit older. I think I was 11 at the time. And as I was off work, my mum used to work at the local spa. And the guy who ran the spa gave my mum just like a shitload of videos for me to watch whilst I was off school. And one of those videos was Child's Play, the original 1988 film. I remember my mum sitting me down and saying, like, no, you don't need to be scared. It's fine. If anything bad happens, just laugh because it's funny. And I think that's where my love of horrors came from. Like, my mum's never been a fan of them, so I don't even know why she said, yeah, crack on. But yeah, she told me to just laugh at the horrible things. And that's kind of the mantra I've always taken through all the horrors. So yeah, Child's Play is the one that really got me into it. I have got a Chucky doll somewhere in this house. I think he's in the loft. I hope he's still in the loft anyway. Otherwise, that would be a terrifying discovery one day. So let's start off week 1 of the HorrorFest with something horrific. Slasher films. So the slasher film is typically associated with otherworldly protagonists who seemingly can't be killed. Think of Mike Myers, or Michael Myers. Obviously, Mike Myers is something very different. Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Chucky, some of the big hitters in this genre. The origins of the subgenre date back to The 13 Women from 1932. This is a film about a sorority whose former members are set against each other by a vengeful peer. And sororities and college-age students being murdered has been a staple of this genre now for nearly 100 years. Of course, it also gave rise to the final girl trope. That's the last woman standing, so to speak, to take on the big bad. Michael Myers had Laurie Strode, Ghostface had Sidney Prescott. Even up to today, the Bayfield babyface killer from Happy Death Day had Teresa Gelbman. The slasher is probably the subgenre which gets most people interested in horror, I think. So, it's time for recommendations. Stu, what's your recommendation, please?
Nice and easy with this one. Halloween.
Just classic, isn't it?
Classic, brilliant. Even when I watched it in preparation for the, reboot actual sequel a couple of years ago, and I was amazed how good it still was. It's just perfect. Exactly what it might be paint by numbers now, but I don't care. It's just superb.
It's generic because it defined the genre. Yeah. That's the reason why it's paint by numbers, because everything that came after it has basically tried to copy it, I think. Matt, what's yours, please?
Well, I need to give you a slight bit of context on here because, as I said to you, Andy, much to your dismay, the slasher is comfortably one of my least favourite horror genres. And not because it incorporates jumpy scares, but I was really never into the boom of Americana in the early 2000s or late 1990s, where everything seemingly had to come from college campuses and it was pop punk and it was all of that shite, and I was just really not into it. I was like, I'd be anything other than that. You know, when people were listening to Blink-182, I was listening to Limp Bizkit, and the two just weren't socially compatible. They just weren't in the same wheelhouse. So things like Scream and things of that nature just do nothing for me. So for that reason, as a slasher, I'd gone with American Psycho. Now, really struggled with the book American Psycho. It was a hard read. Like, I didn't get a lot of pleasure out of it, but the social critique element of American Psycho I really enjoyed. And what I like about it is there's an element of Bateman that's all of us. Especially if you work in an office setting and you work in a you work with people that you would love to stab in the face multiple times. You can relate to this character, and some of the things, the way that he goes about his business, and has these inner monologues of complete psychotic behaviour, I think is wonderful. It's as much of a black comedy as it is a slasher. But like all good things, like all good villains and characters, there is always a slight justifiable quality to them. The things that they're doing are in some twisted way okay, and I think that in American Psycho you have that feeling in your deepest, darkest part of your mind, and that's why I really enjoy it.
Excellent choice. So, I mean, this goes back a little bit to the question we had on the last QuestionCast from yourself about, is it ever acceptable to end a film on it was all a dream?
Mm-hmm.
Was it all a dream? Did it happen? What do you think?
I'm not sure. The jury's out on this. I remember sending myself absolutely doolally about Inception, and to the point where I think I'd almost ruined it for myself. Because I'm reading conspiracies, I'm reading this, I'm reading that, and I tried intentionally not to do it with this. I just wanted to enjoy it for its violent elements and not necessarily anything else. So I think the jury's out on that one. I'm happy leaving it in the way. I'm kind of happy leaving it as it is for now and not exploring that any further and enjoying it for him talking about, is it Duran Duran, when their earlier work was the best, whatever it was, whatever he said.
Genesis.
Oh,
yeah, I like his diatribe on Huey Lewis in the News. I mean that scene's just phenomenal. And I'm a big fan of Chloe Sevigny. I think she's a really talented actor who doesn't really get the big roles, but she's always really, really good, and she's excellent in that film. Ash, what's your first selection, please?
I tossed and turned over it, and there was an obvious one, but I went past it, and I went for the epitome of the how do you say it? The cliche and the satirizing of it, and I've gone for Scream with the ghost face. It features Courtney Cox in her best role. Fans come at me. A former WCW World Heavyweight Champion, David Arquette. I have to get the rest of them in there. It's got Shaggy in it, and I think you could go through all of the. If you're going to recommend a slasher film, you could go through all of their sequels and things like that. But if you want to get them rolled up into one, I think Scream's probably the best place to go because it tells you everything that you want from a slasher movie. It literally rolls it all off for you.
Yeah, I love Scream. The third one, not so much, but I've got to say 1, 2, and even 4 I thought was a decent movie. The third one was just a bit bland, and annoyingly I guessed the twist before I even got into the cinema, which spoiled it somewhat. But yeah, it's an excellent film. And Scream for me is the reason why the Scary Movie film was never that funny, because Scream is a pastiche of films. It's a parody of horror slashers. So Scary Movie was trying to parody a parody, and that's why it never really rang true for me.
What about the series? Have you seen the series?
I saw the first season and wasn't blown away. I think I watched the first episode of the second, and it was one of those where it didn't improve, so I just cut it loose.
Yeah, I watched them to the end. It was better than a lot of other things that we've had to suffer through for this, but yeah, I know what you mean. I think it was too. It was very MTV, obviously made by MTV anyway. Yeah, but all the stuff about because we had to torrent it down because it was never even shown here.
No.
So every time the music came up and it had that thing pop up at the bottom saying what the track was, and I thought, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
So
it's really distracting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just could never get to grips with it. I think the problem with horror is it's all about the impact of it. And when you're stretching it out across a dozen episodes, it loses some of that somewhat. It dilutes the impact of it. So, yeah, horror series are seldom good. There's a few, like, I mean, Ash versus the Evil Dead is excellent, but, I mean, that's Evil Dead, so of course it is.
Have you seen any of American Horror Stories on Disney Plus?
I have, yes. I've seen the season.
Is it any good?
Yes. Have you seen American Horror Story?
I've seen the first 4. I got up to...
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen the first 4.
So you've seen Murder House?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
That's the only one you don't need to see, but if you see it, it adds context to American Horror Stories. Okay. The first 2 episodes...
Answer me one question, Andy. Answer me one question.
Okay.
Is the sexy maid in it?
Annoyingly not.
Oh,
Annoyingly not. Yeah, that is a disappointment. But yeah, the first 2 episodes link back to to Murder House, and the last episode does. The others are just standalone episodes. But yeah, it's fine. Okay. Like, it's 7 episodes or whatever it is. It's decent. My recommendation is going to be Psycho. I'm going all the way back to 1960. I mean, Bates is one of the all-time great characters of any genre ever. I love it. I'm a huge Alfred Hitchcock fan. I remember when I was at uni, like, doing all the Hitchcock stuff was my favourite time of doing film studies. I absolutely adored it. It was one of the first films that we broke down and would look at the iconography and the mise en scène and all that wanky, pompous stuff that you have to do as a film student. But there's just so much depth and layers to the film Psycho. I think it's excellent. I mean, there's some stuff I want to come on to in a little bit on one of the other questions, but Psycho's an excellent movie. The original, not the remake. Very much not the remake.
Have you watched Bates Motel? What did you think of that?
I watched the first episode and it annoyed me, so I can't watch it. I think it was just because it was a modern day retelling, wasn't it? Like, he had an iPhone, if I remember correctly, and I just couldn't get over that, so I didn't watch anymore. Is it worth the investment or not?
It's okay. It's hard to get used to now. Obviously, an older version of Charlie Bucket ending up being a sociopath killer.
Yeah, maybe one day, but I highly doubt it. So that's our recommendations. So we'll move on to question number 3. And because we've just been discussing this subgenre, I want to know, who's your favourite horror villain? Matt?
It's got to be... it's quite a basic bitch choice, this, so my apologies. But it's got to be the Xenomorph from Alien. Alien 1, the only horror film of the genre, or just Alien, as is known to everybody else, before it turned into an action series. What isn't there to like? It's the perfect killing machine, and it pisses blood. That's acid. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing. But I think everything about that Alien movie was just, you're so vulnerable. The people that they were so vulnerable. It felt like genuine terror that you're never going to feel in the world that we live in, and that made it all the more scary because you didn't know what to expect. It was just, for what is, it's got age on its clock now, that movie, but it hasn't aged a day, I don't think, either. And the Xenomorph is just, it's just badass. It's just everything that a monster should be: indestructible, a genuine threat to everybody, but then it's overcome in the end by the final girl as well, in a weird way, that not that trope that you actually expect, I guess, because Sigourney Weaver isn't that. I think the further we went in that franchise, the worse the Xenomorph became, and when it became like that dog thing in the third one in the prison, that was pretty diabolical. And then at the end of Alien versus Predator, when you've got a Predator alien, that was dog shit. But take me back, make me forget about the rest, and give me the first Xenomorph.
It's interesting because, like, with my answer, I was debating the one I went with, or Jaws. I was like, could you class Jaws? I mean, I think Jaws and the Xenomorph are quite close because they're both instinctual predators. Basically, they're not killers who've got an agenda. They're beasts, for want of a better word. So I didn't know if I could make that argument, but I think you have sold it that you can make that argument. They are the perfect killers in their field.
Oh, totally, yeah. It's just it felt so indestructible and just added to the terror. Even the elements of just like the dribble, or it's probably the secretion of the from its mouth that is used to like paralyze its prey as it was explored. I just think it's just brilliant, and it's really well done. And not even taking it one step further back than the Xenomorph. What's more terrifying than a face hugger? No, you know what I mean. The idea of having this thing on your face that's choking you and putting something down your throat and it basically impregnating you. I suppose there's deeper, darker elements to it and about that and like social context and all sorts. And it's just wonderful. Really, really. I hate that Alien will never be seen as a horror franchise, and it shouldn't be because they're not. But the first one was something special.
It is a perfect horror film. Yeah, absolutely. So my other choice, it was either between Jaws or the one I went with, which I know Ash is going to hate, is Pennywise the Clown. There is something about clowns. Like, I fully understand why people are terrified of clowns. It's that not knowing who they are. It's the fact that they wear a mask without actually wearing a mask. And Pennywise is more than just the clown, really, isn't he? Obviously, we know from the story that he's whatever you don't want him to be, effectively. Whatever terrifies you is what Pennywise becomes. And that's sort of the perfect horror villain, isn't it? It's your worst nightmare brought to life, whatever it may be. I think if he was in the real world and Pennywise was a thing, people would be more scared of him than anything because he could be everything that you didn't want. And I know a lot of people shit on the second chapter of the film, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good two-parter, much better than the original. And I quite liked the original series, the one from the 90s, but I really enjoyed the two most recent encapsulations of Pennywise. I would quite like to read some more Stephen King just to try and... because apparently he appears in other books as well, Pennywise does. So I'm quite intrigued to see what else they've done with the character. But yeah, that would be my favourite horror villain. Ash, who's yours?
I've got to mention my namesake, Ash from Evil Dead. just because he made my life easier. But I have to go with my guy, Jason Voorhees. What a guy. The hockey mask is iconic. The machete. He's been to space. He's been to New York. He's been James Bond. If you've seen the Sick film, I think Jason Lives. The opening scene is him parodying James Bond. Absolutely comedy gold. It's just the nonchalantness. He's just a man machine, killing machine. Just walking in, taking no shit, chopping off heads. What else can you say, really? I have an affinity to him because I've been on many a Halloween night out dressed as Jason Voorhees, and on Halloween especially, girls love Jason Voorhees. I can tell you that quite substantially.
Stu, Matt, have either of you two dressed up at Halloween as any horror villains?
I've done... Well, I remember one year I had a Halloween party and I was super lazy, so I just went the V for Vendetta style.
Nice.
So I just got the mask, literally wore that and a big cape, and I got away with it. I showed you, Andy, the horror display that was my Rowdy Roddy Piper a few weeks ago. And if you actually saw the wig that came with it, you would... it was more misery than Rowdy Roddy Piper. To be honest, it was not a good look.
Stu, I reckon you've got some looks.
No, there's the Joker one that has sometimes been my Twitter profile picture when we all did DC villains together, but that's not really... I suppose it's horrific, the fact that I'd kind of the year after Michael Jackson died, I painted half of my face black and went out like that. Different time. But for actual Halloween, I probably have, and there's probably pictures of it, but I don't, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything other than just the stuff like putting a bit of latex on and pulling it off, like zombie stuff from years and years ago.
Yeah.
Because we never really did the whole Halloween thing. Ironically enough.
Same here. Yeah, I think the only time I did would have been zombie with the putty scars and like torn up clothes. That was about it, really. Yeah. And question 4. Sorry, I'd lost my place in the script. It's more of a technical...
Ignore mine altogether.
Oh, shit. Sorry, Stu. I thought I started with you, but I didn't, did I? I'm so sorry. Stu, what's your answer?
Do you do it again? Just kind of leave it in.
Fuck it, I'll leave it in. It's fine. They're used to it by now.
So I was thinking of, because there was a couple that, I mean, the first thing that absolutely terrified me was Ed 209, but that's not a horror villain, is he? He's just a psychopath.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
He's a mechanical psychopath who's you can't control it. On the stairs. The other one was, if you think of the action figure of someone where most people have got a gun or a machete or whatever, and this person's would have to be a coat hanger. So we've already gone into Bateman already in depth at how fucking classy he is. Just because it's so OTT 80s that it's just unreal. So I'll go for my third choice with Buffalo Bill, because why wouldn't he?
Yeah.
As totally fucked up as you can possibly be. Just no logic to it. Just someone who's seriously tapped in the head. And how do you control that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, Matt, you've already mentioned Silence of the Lambs as well. They're a good series of films, to be perfectly honest. There's technically 4, aren't there? Although one is a remake of the other one. I think all versions of the actual villain in those movies have been really well produced, and they actually feel like real villains. I know the main man is supposed to be Hannibal Lecter, but he's not really the bad guy in those movies, is he? No,
because he's got this very... It's hard to say this for a serial killer, but he's got a very playfulness about him, hasn't he? Especially in Silence of the Lambs. I know at the end of Hannibal, it's a little less playful and a little more just psycho killer. Qu'est-ce que c'est? But it's just they are again, that they don't get the chops that they deserve as a piece of horror. It's more of a psychological thriller, which is a shame. But they are fantastic films all the same.
Yeah, I think had they not have won the Oscar, they would be firmly within the horror camp. But the fact that they were Oscar winners, that they didn't want to accept the horror genre, so they told everyone it was just a thriller. But yeah, excellent films anyway, regardless. So, a more technical question for you now. I want the best score, soundtrack, piece of music, whatever, anything audible within a film that you think is really well done. Stu, because I forgot you last time, you can kick us off.
Every time you hear a certain piece of music, there's only one that ever gives me any kind of chill. And that's weird, and it's Tubular Bells, Exorcist. Every single time, without fail. I mean, the film itself, not terribly scary, not anymore. Probably, again, a passage of time thing, but it's just that piece of music. It's just... Whoa. It's like nails on chalkboard for people who don't like that kind of thing. Again, don't care really. But it's just them tingles. It's something else. I can't explain it.
No, I get you. It's probably the association to that film that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, because that film does have a legacy, and whilst it probably doesn't have the impact it used to have, there are still elements of it that are creepy as fuck. I mean, the idea of Pazuzu being the big bad infecting a 12-year-old child, like it is quite... It's something that stays with you, and that piece of music is iconic, really, isn't it? that was also the one that I was going to choose. Would be Tubular Bells. It was either Tubular Bells or the Halloween theme. And I think the only reason I've gone with Tubular Bells is because that came first. And I think you don't get the Halloween theme without Tubular Bells. Matt, what about yourself?
So, taking it all the way back to 2003, a piece of music called In the House in the Heartbeat, which is basically the music at the end of 28 Days Later.
Okay, yeah.
It's just this really eerie and quite menacing piece of music that encapsulates. I don't know how to describe it. So the whole film builds up to this massive like crescendo where he essentially turns as violent as the things that are killing everybody else, and he becomes this monster in himself. And this piece of music just crescendos everything about it, and it's really powerful. And that scene is nowhere near as impactful without that piece of music. And when you hear it, it just takes you back. And I think a good piece of music does that, and it just fits perfectly with that movie. And it's one of the things that stands out the absolute most for me. When I think back, if I think of one scene, I think of two things about 28 Days Later. I think about the scene on Tower Bridge, which was just how much of a shithole London is. That was just London at that time in the morning. That wasn't anything special. And that piece of music at the end, I think, is phenomenal.
Have you seen 28 Weeks Later?
I have.
Is it good or?
I'll
tell you, I didn't know.
It's okay. You know what I mean? It's having a really nice beer and then cracking open a can of Stella. It's all right. It's better than most, but it's still not a nicely fresh poured premium.
Yeah, it's like RoboCop 2, really. Oh, it's perfectly fine to watch, but it's not the best at all.
It's also set in the Commonwealth from The Walking Dead.
Oh, right, okay, I get you. Right. I mean, I've seen maybe about 20 minutes of it, and it seems like a complete different film, like Alien to Aliens.
Yeah, it is.
That's why I never wasted my time giving it any more effort. Plus, isn't Hawkeye in it? And, like,
Rose Byrne as well.
Oh, I generally don't mind her, but Hawkeye is generally a no from me. Ash, what's your musical choice?
To be fair, 28 Weeks Later, the chase scene with Robert Carlyle, is it at the start of the film? I think that bit's fantastic. When he's getting chased by the zombies, and then at the end he's on the boat and gets away. Also with the music there, that's fantastic as well. But I'm going to go with a film that's only half a horror. First half's a sci-fi film. I'm going for Sunshine and Adagio in D minor.
That is highbrow for this podcast.
You can hear Adagio in D minor in a film you've reviewed before, which is Kick-Ass. But it starts as a sci-fi film and then it ends as a horror film. So I think it stands for this, for what we're talking about now, because you kind of need the horror aspect at the end, because otherwise it's just a sci-fi film where Wong gets everything wrong and then causes a bit of mayhem. But having Mark Strong go crazy and then fuck everyone up right at the end, I think it makes the film better. And then the tension with the music, it just makes you tense, I think. And that's why I really enjoy it, because you need the tension. Like with Jason's noises, you need those you need that music or that little bit of tension to help you. So I think that's probably one of my favourite bits of music.
Excellent. The other thing that I had written down, I've got two more other uses of music or sound that I thought have been iconic. Obviously, Psycho, the shower scene, like the use of the violin strings that they were doing with each stabbing motion, and that use of the non-diegetic music is perfect. And I think that also echoes down the line through other horror films. There's a reason that scene is iconic. And on a more contemporary note, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, Red Right Hand. That's a piece of music that's been used in quite a few modernish horror movies, and it just seems like an excellent accompaniment to any horror. There aren't many songs that sort of hit the charts that you think would be horror songs as such, but yeah, Red Right Hand, I think, is a good one.
You can't class that now because it's the theme tune to Peaky Blinders.
Oh shit, really?
Yeah, it's the opening credits song.
Oh, that's disappointing. They've let themselves down there.
Let's go and watch it. There's nothing stopping you at all. It's free.
Brummies the way Anyway, supernatural recommendations up next. So these are movies which exist outside the physical realm. Ghouls and ghosts, demons and angels, witches and warlocks. Obviously, these creatures go way back before the invention of cinema. Shakespeare, Dickens, Wilde all had stories about ghastly goings-on. And whilst ghostly films started off generally friendly speaking with Casper, The Ghost Goes West in 1935, it wasn't until the 40s when ghosts became ghoulish in The Uninvited and Dead of Night. I think this is probably the most malleable of the genre, to be honest. Supernatural films come in all flavours, so you get comedy, gore, psychological. Some might not even be horrors. I mean, I just think of Crazy Swayze in Ghost. Like that's a supernatural film, but it's not necessarily horror, so there's a bit of everything. But obviously we're only here to discuss the horror aspects, so tell me what you've got. Matt?
So, from a supernatural point of view, I know there's loads of different options. This really is my bag now, but I put American Werewolf in London was probably, for me, where that side of the genre was reached its peak. Now, there's a bit of a theme to all of my favourite kind of horrors, generally speaking, and that is there's a comedy element to it as well. Maybe it's the milk in a hot curry kind of thing. It's like, it's the bit to kind of desensitize from it. But American Werewolf in London, it teases horror throughout, and then actually when he turns, it's for the time. And I was harangued by good friend of the show Tara and she misconstrued me quite seriously when she said I was basically slagging off American Werewolf in London, saying that its special effects were hokey, which wasn't the case. I just like to have seen what they could do with it now, because obviously at the time it must have been fucking terrifying, like to see like that transformation with what technology was available, and I just think it's a really fun yet scary in parts showing of kind of what rural life and then city life in England is like. So obviously when they're in the what's the name of the pub, the slaughtered lamb, is it? I think it is, or something like that. And everybody stops and they go in there, and these Americans are like on the moors or whatever it is. It's just brilliant. And then there's these funny elements to it, and I never really understood the appeal of like these older movies until I saw that, because I'm from the generation that very much, if it's old, it's shit. But American Werewolf in London started to change that for me, and that that can only be a good thing.
Are you generally speaking a fan of werewolf movies? Where do you stand on the most recent one with Benicio del Toro?
I think the werewolf, much like the vampire, has been ruined by that shambles of a series, Twilight. Now, I know for a fact...
That's just because you hate girls.
That's because I hate girls. No, I mean, and the thing is, the argument that Sam made with me is that these things don't exist, so they can be anything that anyone wants them to be. The werewolf genre, there's always an element of sexiness, isn't there, about the werewolf? There's always this like brooding, half man, carnal desires kind of thing about it. And so generally speaking, I'm not a massive like fan of the love stories that seem to entwine with the werewolf. But American Werewolf in London, as I say, the comedy elements and then the horror side of it kind of it took it away from that. I know there is a love kind of thing going on in there, but it's never really like, it's not the main focus of the whole thing. So
what you're saying there is you're into bears.
Yeah, I am. I mean, if I was that way inclined, I'd be a bear, I think. I'm a hairy man, Andy.
I always used to think that I'd be a good werewolf. That was just one of them things that I used to do. When you're sitting there, you just think about these things, don't you? And oh yeah, I could be a good werewolf, really. But then obviously, still can't grow a beard at 37, so that's never going to happen. I thought you were going to slag off the Underworld series. Then I thought I was ready to kick off.
I see like Terminator 2 running down Ashmore Park towards my house.
I think I've only seen the first Underworld and one of the later ones, which was really bad. It had the black fish out of Game of Thrones in. I can't remember which one it was. It was shocking though. But yeah, not that serious for me, unfortunately. My answer is Host. Obviously, that was my favourite film of 2020 and probably the last film that properly gave me the shits. That I had to watch it in the middle of the day because it was too much for my tiny brain to comprehend. It was genuinely terrifying. Obviously, it was filmed very much like we are right now. It was done over a Zoom chat for them, and it was all that they did a seance, and all the ghosts come and take these people away whilst they're all sat on their own in the middle of a pandemic. It's genuinely one of the best modern horror films. I think it is absolutely superb. This will be like in my top 10 for a very long time, I think, of this genre. I absolutely adored it. I thought it was brilliant. And it came in under an hour. Like, how many films do that in the modern day? They get in, tell the story, and get out. Perfect. So yeah, Host is my answer. Stu, what's yours, please?
Well, I was thinking about this. If I hadn't met a strange bearded man in a pub in Brentford 6 years ago, would I have even contemplated watching something like this? And the answer is probably no. And I think if I hadn't met you and known you, I wouldn't. I'd watch horror films just like I said earlier, just like everything else. But something as fucked up and weird as Hereditary, not a chance in hell. I wouldn't even give that half a chance. And I'm so glad I bowed down to this one. I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. Fucking incredible. Just absolutely mental from start to finish. It's even... I'm guessing 99% of people who listen to this have already seen it, but for that 1% who haven't, trying not to spoil anything. But it's just so weird on so many levels. And every single one, it hits perfectly.
It's exceptional. Like Ari Aster, I think. I know he's only got 2 films out so far with Hereditary and Midsommar. They're both nearly perfect for what they try to achieve in what they're doing. I think they're absolutely brilliant. Yeah, Hereditary was just a random. I think I'd heard someone mention it on a podcast once and thought, yeah, fuck it, why not give it a chance? And it absolutely blew me away. It was just outstanding. And obviously it also stars our friend Alex Wolff from Pig, which is a little bit crazy when, like, obviously we've seen him go on to do other movies. But yeah, top choice that one is.
Yeah, because if I hadn't seen that, then I wouldn't have watched The Lighthouse. Which I could have put that in there.
Yeah, easily. Yeah.
Things like this, but yeah. Superb.
Brilliant. Ash, what's your answer, please?
4 words. I see dead people. The film that made everybody believe the lie that M. Night Shyamalan is a good director. If you've watched his latest attempt of a film, then you'll agree it is horrendous. But alas, also Toni Collette's in it, and she's also in Hereditary, so that's quite a little link. But no, Sixth Sense is literally a film about a boy who can see ghosts. And I think it's probably one of the best twists I think we've had in modern cinema. I don't know if there's been many better twists at the end, apart from possibly a film that I'm going to mention later on. But yeah, I think in terms of ghosts and ghouls and things like that, why not have a kid who can talk to them?
It's an excellent choice. I mean, that sort of feels like that would have been a good introduction to the genre for a lot of people of our age. I think it's really good. And you mentioned Toni Collette. I mean, how she is not yet an Oscar-winning actor is beyond me. I think she's absolutely phenomenal in everything she does. Just ridiculously talented. Really good choice, that is. I still think that Unbreakable is better, if I'm being brutally honest. But you are right. M. Night Shyamalan is an absolute fucking fraud. I'm still annoyed at old, to be perfectly honest at this point. I did warn you, Stu. I did warn you.
Yeah, but you're wrong about so many things.
No, I'm not. When it comes to horror, Stu, you know I'm right with horror.
I was thinking then, how are you possibly going to suffer through the Hawkeye series when that comes out? Because you're gonna have to watch it and then you're gonna have to hate it. So we all know you're gonna rant and put it on the Twitter account and not tag yourself so that everyone thinks that we all think the same. And then
I've tried watching What If. I just no. I watched the zombie one, which apparently is like the best one. No, it's just got nothing on the book. It's just bland. Sorry, but it's true. Sorry,
Are they implying that Hawkeye's deaf in this in the series after however many films? He's just now deaf. Okay, cool, whatever.
I haven't actually seen the trailer for this one. I've just tried to avoid it, hoping that it might go away and pretend it doesn't exist. But yeah, you are right, Stu. I will watch it and I will most likely hate it. Right, so that's the first week of our HorrorFest done. So we're going to take a quick break and we will be back in a fortnight with the second half. Next week, obviously, is a picture pod and we're delving into Vengeance, a Love Story, a Cage film from 2017. It's available on Prime Video currently, but make sure to check justwatch.com in case it's streaming elsewhere. That was a film, wasn't it, lads? That's all I can say about that one. So yeah, make sure you let us know what your slasher and supernatural horrors would be if you were to make your own Halloween film festival. Get at us on @CageFightingPod on the Twitter and cagefightingpod@gmail.com for any emails. If you can make sure you subscribed, and a review would be phenomenal also. Thank you. So for this week, Matt, would you like to say goodbye?
Take it easy, guys. Look after yourselves.
Stu, would you like to say goodbye?
sayonara.
Ash, would you like to say goodbye?
Goodbye, guys. Have fun.
And it's goodbye from me. And remember, be excellent to each other.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.